Hello and welcome to Take Time. I am your host, Patrick Marlette, and let's talk about what's inside these two boxes. These two boxes. That's a fun sentence to say. I got some watches from Gavox that I'm getting to review for you guys. However, this is a little bit odd of an unboxing and first impression. By the way, guys, if you're new to the channel, I do these two-part reviews here. The part one video is an unboxing and first impression, and part two is a week in the life in-depth review. And in part one, I take all of your questions, comments, and concerns and answer them in that part two video. So if you're unfamiliar with the format, well, that's how it goes. Normally, I unbox the watches I receive, except I got the watches in a box that I thought was something else, and I cranked it open. And lo and behold, I had these Gavox watches, and I have three variations that are in today. I hate to have spoiled the unboxing aspect, but we will, however, go ahead with the first impression. I'm pretty sure I did not get a consumer's packaging, so this is not indicative of what you guys would see if it arrived at your door, so it wouldn't have been good to do the unboxing anyways. So spoiler alert, there's nothing like that. However, in front of us, we have one of the colorway options I received, and I believe there's 6 colorways in total. There is a black dial, a blue dial, and a white dial, and they all either come with a steel and or black PVD case. So I love options. It's great that we're provided a lot of options here. Great job, team. So in total, I received 3 Avidivers to review. I'm going to stick with just wearing one for my own sanity's sake, but they all should lend the same impression of how these wear on the wrist day to day. But this is an example of the Pbe Coating in my left hand, and obviously in my right, another stainless steel case with the black dial, likely to be the most popular. And understandably, it looks extremely good. I feel like black dive watches rather, sort of a fallback for a lot of us. But I'm going to go ahead and do close-ups so you can see all of these and what they look like. Here we have the white model, and this is the one that I've decided I was going to go ahead and wear day to day. I actually quite like it a lot. The white is almost snow white in tone. It's just a very pure white tone, and it does really well to punch out the black numerals on the dial, and also that big orange triangle you see at the 12 o'clock position. I'll talk more about that in a second, but that is sort of the gimmick, I'll call it a gimmick, of the dive watch here, is the rotating internal triangle, not necessarily bezel, but triangle. And we have that black dial variant I mentioned already. Again, this guy is extremely handsome. Instead of the orange hands to match the triangle of the white dial variant, you have these pristine white hands, and I like how they contrast the black of the dial. I think if they went with orange here, it wouldn't have looked as good. You still retain a dark orange and or red-orange tip for the seconds hand, and it has that Gavox logo, the Gavox wings at the opposite end as a counterbalance, and I actually quite like that. You'll see how sexy that is when they line up with the logo. Ugh. And last but not least, we have the blue dial face version, and this one has the PVD coating exhibited on it, this black PVD. And I'll let you guys know that it is additional cost to get the PVD coating. It typically is with most watch brands. I think it's something like 50 euros to get the black PVD case as opposed to the stainless steel option. And, you know, is it worth it? What depends on the kind of watch you're looking for. If you wanted a stealthier or sleeker looking watch, well, this is the way to go. Also, I've noticed these black PVD cases tend to wear smaller on the wrist. Black watches in general seem to have a sort of diminishing effect to them. Like, they don't feel as large in scale whilst on the wrist as opposed to, you know, their stainless steel variants. And on that note, the case diameter for these watches is 43 millimeters with a case length, that is lug to lug, of 50.8 millimeters and a case thickness of 12.8. Also, you'll notice in the background here, I have a couple of different strap options. This is what originally came on the white dial variant, as it paired the best with the accents of the hands and the big triangle at 12 o'clock. We also have a black Gavox nylon strap that is also NATO style. Now, again, I'm not really certain whether you get these straps accompanying these watches. He might have just sent them my way to sample these watches on, something other than the molded silicone straps that are custom designed for them. And I just felt like wearing it on the leather native, as I thought this was a really gorgeous looking pairing for this particular watch. And it might be like an additional charge to get these straps, or it might come with more research is necessary on that part. But I can say that the watches outside of Europe, everything's going to be in euros on the website, are about 540 euros a piece. So it's a little bit up there. What do you get for that? Inside beats the heart of a Miyota 9015 movement. So if you've never tried one of these before, people compare it with the ETA 2824. They say it is essentially, the ETA equivalent of that movement due to the, power reserve and the beat rate of this movement. It's sort of the Japanese equivalent, and I suppose I'll agree with that. In performance and or maintenance and longevity of use, I can't quite speak to that. I own a lot of Seikos personally, so I'm just accustomed to their movements. I've never had a 9015 for that long, but I can say again that the accuracy of these watches, or at least that white version, have been pretty good up till now. So this was noted as a novelty on Mike's website, the Gavox website, and I'll leave you guys a link directly to the article on the Avidiver. But I actually find this quite unique, and of course I'll elaborate on its usability in day-to-day use in our part 2 video. But over at the 2 o'clock position, you'll notice there is this crown, and it has a giant orange triangle on it. Well, guess what? When you unscrew this, it's a screw-in crown, it rotates that big old triangle. So what can you use this for? Well, obviously you can use this for timing things. If you have it lined up anywhere around the dial and the minute hand hits it, well, guess what? That much time has elapsed. It's not necessarily like a countdown or a typical diving bezel where you adjust the whole thing, but I actually quite like how this functions. It's just as easy to gauge elapsed time with this function. And I do like the overall execution here. I think that the screw-in component of the crown is also a huge benefit. I can't tell you how many times I've had these secondary crowns that weren't screw-in, in that, whatever it was, an internal rotating bezel and or a big triangle in this case would just free float depending on how I wore the watch. Like my wrist would move the crown unintentionally. So it is nice to have a screw-in crown here instead. And over at the 5 o'clock, we have a screw-in crown once again, but this one obviously operates our date and time. It's a 2-step crown, so our first step is going to be the date, and then it will go into the time. And of course, you have a hacking seconds here with the Miyota 9015. Oh, all the luxuries of a modern automatic movement. So, you're not missing out with that here. And I have to say, again, I've quite enjoyed this over the last 2 days I've used it. I'm going to give this a lot more field time, obviously, but I really like the inclusion of the 9015. I don't think I've ever had a Miyota 9015 watch in to either just wear casually or talk about on the show. So this is really cool. Now, before we close out this video and do a wrist shot, I wanted to speak briefly of these molded silicone straps. They're extremely supple, and I love the style of the strap itself. Of course, I'll give you my feedback on the wearability over time, but if you have any questions on it, let me know. But I have to say that aesthetically, I really like the overall design of the outside of this strap, of these straps, I should say. How it, again, matches the Gavox wings, the V sort of silhouette of the branding. It's nice to have that tie-in on the strap. You really do feel like you have a custom piece, and wow, it's just so eye-catching. It keeps focusing on this watch. But you can sort of see what I'm talking about right there where it meets the lugs. It has that cutout design, and that design follows through to the tail end of the strap as well, where the perforations are for the strap to go on your wrist. And what's really nice, and I like this feature a lot actually is these little plastic nibs that hold this first keeper down. It's fantastic seeing this on watches. It's nice to have this keeper not float about. There need to be more tricks like this to keep these keepers down, to keep the keepers down. And I really like the execution here, so thank you. Thank you for that. Now I want to leave you guys with a wrist shot. I'm gonna leave this on this particular strap because I think it looks so good on the strap. But I'd like to leave you guys with a wrist shot of the Avidiver so you have an impression of what it'll look like on your wrist. God, this leather strap looks like the pig skin of a football. You know, it's got this aesthetic to it that it's very sporty looking, I suppose is what I'm saying, and I quite like it. But this is what the Gavox Avidiver is gonna look like when people are admiring it on your wrist. And when you go to admire it, it's gonna look a little something like this. It looks really good when paired with a leather NATO, and you know, I don't really mind the added height. This is not the kind of watch you want to be discreet with, so who cares? And of course, you can always just slip your wrist in the hole that is created by these two straps instead if you wanted to reduce the thickness of this on your wrist, but you'll normally be wearing this on one of those silicone straps. You'd likely be seeing it on this strap here. I really do love the look of these fitted silicone straps, and I do like how well they're fitted to the case. And of course, that little design cue I talked about there with the Gavox V, I like how that line helps to show you the taper in the strap. It is a minor taper, but it is made more prevalent with that little design detail. By the way, the lug width on this watch is about 22 millimeters, so if you have a lot of 22 millimeter straps, you likely do if you collect dive watches, well, you will have another strap alternative for this watch. Now, will the Avidiver prove to be the world's finest dive watch? Well, only time will tell. However, if you guys have questions regarding this watch, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. As stated off the bat here, I like to take any questions, comments, or concerns and answer them in our part 2 video. So if you've been looking for a good Avidiver review, this is one that we get to shape together. So feel free to ask any of those questions down below. Now, if you found this video enlightening or in the least entertaining, feel free to hit that like button. It looks a little something like this. If you have friends, forums, or groups that are interested in picking up a new dive watch, well, this is an interesting one from a brand I really do like. I've reviewed a Gavox watch before here on the YouTubes, and I'm so glad that I got to reach out to Mike and pick up one of these Avidivers. I have 3 of these Avidivers. If you are looking for a review on this piece, well, guess what? Our part 2 is going to cover everything that we talk about here. So feel free to share this video with your pals if they're interested in getting something with an internal rotating bezel or something just a little bit different. And if you are new to the channel, thank you for finding me here. If long form watch content is your thing, well, I do videos like this twice a week. So if you'd like to follow along, feel free to hit that subscribe button down at the bottom, and you can hit the bell next to that if you want to be alerted to when my videos release, precisely when they release. Again, my name is Patrick Marlette, and thank you for the time.